From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo. This is From the South. Supporters of the former Peruvian President Alan Garcia have been expressing shock at his death by suicide. People gathered outside Lima Hospital where Garcia was taken for emergency service after he shot himself in the head. The incident reportedly occurred as police arrived to arrest him in connection with the Odebrecht corruption scandal. The 69-year-old former president had repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. And Garcia's death was confirmed by the Forensics Department. The Attorney General had ordered his preliminary arrest to investigate the case. Garcia served as president between 1985 and 1990, and again between 2006 and 2011 with the APRA party. Our correspondent Jaime Herrera has the latest from Lima.
After learning about the death of former President Alan Garcia, now there is a debate how the body of the former president will be transferred to the morgue. The police want to transfer the body as soon as possible so they can start investigating the death. However, the members of Garcia's party are asking authorities to transfer the body with a parade and start his funeral before the investigation and administrative process begins. The APRA party has announced that the wake will take place in the party's headquarters known as Casa del Pueblo or People's House. It is important to mention that in this investigation were also involved his personal secretary, the son of his secretary, and the former Minister of Transport, René Cornejo. Cornejo surrendered to the police in the morning. President Martín Vizcarra said he was concerned about the death and sent his condolences to Garcia's family and the party's members.
We thank Jaime Herrera for that report. Prosecutors allege that Odebrecht paid millions of dollars in bribes to the private secretary of Alan Garcia. Let's take a closer look at the corruption case against the former Peruvian president.
Luis Nava Guibert and his son Jose Nava Mendiola received more than $4 million from Odebrecht, according to the news website IDL Reporters. The alleged bribes were through a shell account at a private bank in Andorra. Both men are now fugitives from justice.
Mr. Nava is indeed abroad, and his father is in hospital. All this is well known, and so the public prosecutor, in this case, José Domingo Pérez, has to make an independent assessment of all this information.
In the Odebrecht files seen by Peruvian journalists, it says that these apparent bribes were linked to mega construction projects like the Inter-Ocean Highway and the Olmos irrigation works. According to the Congressman Humberto Morales, both projects involved a series of irregularities.
There were 6-hour meetings between José and Nava and Odebrecht staff, and then the government issued emergency decrees, which in fact there is nothing urgent about them, but which made significant changes to the budgets of these projects.
Luis Nava Guibert was for years a close friend of Alan Garcia's. He was his personal secretary throughout his second term, and this also became a part of the investigations. Aside from Nava, arrest warrants were issued for 4 senior officials in Garcia's government in connection with the car wash corruption scandal. They include directors of Petro Peru, the Ministry of Transport, and the Lima Metro.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has announced it is tightening its blockade on Cuba through the controversial Helms-Burton Law and will begin other measures against the island. The government announced the enforcing of Title III of the Helms-Burton Law, which allows U.S. companies and individuals to claim properties expropriated by the Cuban government at the beginning of the revolution. Title III also allows legal claims against foreign companies which engage in business that involves such property.
I'm announcing that the Trump administration will no longer suspend Title III. Effective May 2nd, the right to bring an action under Title III of the Libertad Act will be implemented in full. I have already informed Congress of my decision.
And Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez replied to the U.S. measures on Twitter. He said this announcement from Pompeo is an attack on international law and the sovereignty of Cuba and other states. He said this aggressive escalation by actions of the U.S. against Cuba will fail, as in the Battle of Girón. We will win. He was referring to the U.S. invasion in 1961, which was stopped by the forces of Fidel Castro. Our correspondent in Washington, Jorge Gestoso, has more.
Thank you. President Trump has approved a move in order to choke off even more the Cuban economy, allowing that American companies and individuals can sue properties that has been confiscated by the Cuban Revolution, even further to the President Castro arrival to the power. We're talking about that this disregard the previous policy of 3 American presidents and open the gate for many suits at different levels. That has created concern and repudiation of other parts of the world, for example, European Union and other countries that has large investments in Cuba, because now they believe that their investment could be affected by this new policy. That has been announced by Secretary of State Pompeo, and this is part of a new offensive against progressive and socialist governments in the region. We're talking Venezuela trying to overthrow President Maduro's government. Now we're talking about Cuba, and next in line is Nicaragua. We get back to you now.
We thank Jorge Gestoso for that report. April 17th is the International Day of Campesino Struggle. Social movements around the world are marking the occasion with protests and other activities. Sao Paulo is one of several calls across Brazil by the landless workers movement. The International Campesino Day began in Brazil, where it coincides with the National Day of Struggle for Land Reform. It was set on this day to remember the massacre of 19 campesinos at Carajas in 1996.
It's a way of land reform.
April 17th marks the 23rd anniversary of the Peasant massacre in El Dorado do Carajas. This is a very important day for all of our workers. We took the force of the peasants who were assassinated. They died, but their sacrifice served as seeds to foment our struggle.
Our correspondent in Brazil, Brian Muir, has been at the demonstration in Sao Paulo and has more.
I'm standing in Agua Branca Park in the city of São Paulo, where hundreds of members of the Landless Rural Workers Movement, commonly known as the MST, have gathered after they occupied a government building this morning to remember the International Day of Peasant Struggle. Now, all over Brazil, the MST is coordinating similar events to this one. In the state of São Paulo alone, there were 22 different demonstrations today. And so the MST is demanding not just that their fallen comrades are remembered on this day, but they're demanding an end to the violence that's increasing against peasants in the Brazilian countryside since the election of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Argentina is introducing price controls and other measures to try to control galloping inflation and drop of the peso. The president of the central bank made the announcement after figures released on Tuesday showed that inflation in March was much higher than expected. The price of 60 essential products, including food, will be frozen for at least 6 months. Argentina has one of the highest inflation rates in the world, and President Mauricio Macri's popularity is falling sharply ahead of elections in October. Our correspondent Edgardo Esteban from Buenos Aires explains the details.
Despite predictions that it will ease in April, inflation rates in Argentina continue to rise. An inflation rate of 4.7% was reported in March, and an added rate of 11.8% for the first quarter of the year. Because of this, the government made an important announcement aimed at easing the economic situation in the country. The price of 60 products will remain frozen until the end of the year. This is an alternative solution to avoid families from paying more and more for the same food products, as prices can increase on a daily basis. However, the cost of electricity, gas, and water continues to increase. But the government is trying to find a way to also halt the increase of gas prices. They are also trying to freeze public transportation fees, credit benefits, and the price of medication for retired people. The government is also trying to design a specific credit and loan scheme for small businesses. But Macri's economic policies had before resulted in more than 150,000 layoffs, and over 30,000 businesses had to close down.
We thank Edgardo for that report. Members of parliament in Chile are debating the approval of the TPP free trade agreement. Our correspondent, Diario Venezuela, has the details.
Chile is discussing the TPP treaty, a free trade agreement that now has to be approved by the parliament so it can come into effect. Over the years, Chile has signed 25 free trade agreements with over 60 countries. Now social movements are worried since they say that this new deal is a secret for citizens. There are over 30 chapters in the deal and 300 pages that only a few have read. What we know is that the transnational companies will not be regulated by Chile's laws, among other things. In fact, if these corporations consider their businesses are being affected while operating in the country, they could sue the government for violation of the agreement. Social movements mobilized on Tuesday in Valparaiso, and they are also marching this Wednesday in capital Santiago. The political party Christian Democracy is fully supporting the agreement. They also support other projects like the tax reform presented by President Sebastián Piñera.
We thank Diare for that report. Thousands marched towards the presidential palace in Ecuador on Tuesday evening to express their opposition to government policies. But the police met with the protesters with tear gas, pepper spray, and batons. Our correspondent was there.
In the afternoon, thousands gathered in this park in Quito to begin their protest over a raft of government policies. They chanted to demand the resignation of President Lenin Moreno and called him a traitor.
I've lived in the United States for 54 years, and I used to love coming back home because under President Garcia, things were going well. But with this gentleman, a lot of people are out of work.
The protesters also condemned the expulsion of Julian Assange from Ecuador's embassy in London and the removal of his Ecuadorian citizenship, as well as the agreement with the IMF, which they say is already having an impact on the economy.
They are going to put up the price of cooking gas and diesel. They already put up gasoline. They are laying off civil servants and increasing VAT. All this is because of the IMF. So we need to wake up and organize permanent protests based on the grassroots.
The march moved through the historic center. Close to the presidential palace, they tried to get past the police barriers, and the police responded. Some accused them of excessive use of force, leaving a number of people injured and arrested.
They come here and hit us. They don't care if they're senior citizens, women and children, people with disabilities. They come and beat us as if we were criminals. We won't give in.
Don't feel frustrated, comrades. This is what the struggle and resistance are like. The people are here with us.
In the end, the police violence dispersed the march, but skirmishes continued throughout the night in different parts of the historic center. Local shops and restaurants, as well as passerbys, were all affected by the tear gas.
Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has said China offers better loans to the Caribbean than the World Bank. The Prime Minister criticized the United States' position on China's assistance program. He was speaking at the handover ceremony for a community center funded by China. This is the second time in 7 months that Brown has chastised U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who labeled China a predator.
Cigars or rum, it's oppression.
The debate on St. Lucia's budget is underway following Prime Minister Alan Garcia's presentation of a $588 million fiscal package. Chesney has announced a number of budgetary measures, including an increase in fuel taxes and a reduction in value-added tax. Also, under a new income tax system, personal allowance would increase. It is projected that St. Lucia's economy will grow by 3% this financial year. There has also been a slight decline in public debt.
Number 9 order. Statutory.
The indigenous communities from the Murindo municipality in Colombia have reported the presence of armed groups in their territory. The mayor of Murindo said that legal and illegal transit is putting the families living in the area at risk. The indigenous communities say they are being used as a human shield as the conflict between multinational corporations and groups operating outside the law. They demanded respect for international human rights and adherence to the Geneva Convention. 2 foreign women will be expelled from Chile after participating in the last Mapuche community protest. A Colombian and an Argentinian woman joined the protest on April 3rd in the city of Temuco. The protest ended with some clashes. Police reportedly identified the women through security cameras. They are expected to be expelled since their visas have expired. This Wednesday is the anniversary of the U.S.-backed invasion of Cuba in 1961, known as the Bay of Pigs. A day before the failed attack, the Cuban leaders declared the socialist nature of the revolution.
Fidel Castro declared the socialist nature of the Cuban Revolution at the funeral ceremony for the victims that died in the bombings in different parts of the country. This criminal action occurred when 8 mercenary planes flew over the islands with fake identification. They intended to destroy Cuba's air force to reduce their already small capacity, addressing an outraged crowd willing to defend their right to rule over their own destiny. Fidel stated.
What the imperialists cannot forgive is that we are here and that we created a socialist revolution right in front of their noses, and that we defend the socialist revolution with these rifles.
The attack was a prelude to the invasion of Playa Girón on April 17, 1961, which backfired as the United States suffered their first defeat in Latin America, thanks to the joint action of the army and the people through the National Revolutionary Militias. According to Fidel, the proclamation of the socialist nature of the Cuban Revolution started with the U.S. aggression. It was defined by the need to raise the revolutionary flag higher than ever.
Y que hayamos hecho una revolución socialista en las propias narices de los Estados Unidos.
We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. The Algerian top trade union office was stormed by protesters calling on its chief resignation. Protesters claimed that Sidi Said has ties to the ousted president Abdelaziz Bouteflika. The protesters have vowed to continue demonstrating until everyone linked to Bouteflika's government is out of power.
Today we are here outside the offices of the union to overthrow the Secretary General of the General Union of Algerian Workers, Sidi Said, because this man is someone who was left from the old regime. This person does not represent anyone, while we as workers represent almost 34% of the society. We are not satisfied with it. We want him gone.
South African opposition leader Julius Malema has accused the country's police force of trying to stop his party from campaigning for the coming elections. Police officers threatened his party members who marched to local government offices to protest against alleged nepotism in the recruitment of council workers. The police said the protest was illegal because the protesters did not have a permit as required by law.
How do you shoot at people who are protesting peacefully? How do you shoot at people who are not throwing a stone, nothing? We are not going anywhere. This is a municipal property. It's not your mother's property. It's not an ANC property. It's our property. Stop telling me about rubbish permit. That permit is rubbish, it's nothing.
Egypt's election commission has announced a referendum over proposed changes to the constitution, seeking to allow President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to stay in power until 2030. The amendments also seek to grant Sisi new powers over the appointment of judicial officials and create an upper chamber in parliament. The announcement came a few hours after the country's parliament, dominated by Sisi, supporters passed the amendments.
Article 2 of the National Election Commission. The referendum mentioned in the previous article would take place according to the following dates. Outside the Arab Republic of Egypt, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 19, 20, and 21 of April 2019. We have for those reasons considered the holidays of Egyptians abroad. With regards to in the Arab Republic of Egypt, they will fall on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the 20, 21, and 22 of April 2019.
A bomb scare halted several flights in and out of Kenya's main airport. Kenya Airways was told that a bomb might have been on one of its flights to South Africa. The crew and passengers disembarked for security re-screening while the aircraft was searched. Meanwhile, the passenger that caused the bomb scare has been detained. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ebola survivors have turned into caregivers. These survivors are also serving as educators and advocates for the centers in the communities, while helping to take care of Ebola patients. According to the World Health Organization, over 1,200 Ebola cases have been confirmed in the country, of which 29% of them are children. More than 760 have died since the outbreak in August.
Ebola claimed 10 of my family members. We didn't know from the WhatsApp about Ebola and thought it was just a regular illness and flu. My uncle became sick first. Then my parents went to look after him, then he died. Our parents in turn unknowingly came back infected, then became sick, and in our bid to try to treat them and care for them, got infected. They died, and in the end we lost 10 people, we was infecting each other, and 4 of us survived.
It is hard enough for the mother to be ailing and taking care of a child to interfere with her treatment. That is why we try to take off that pressure from the mother, and I will do this work until Ebola is no more in Butembo.
Over 300 climate activists have been arrested in different locations in London during the ongoing protests led by the Extinction Rebellion group. The demonstrators blocked several main roads and disrupted public transport in the city. The British climate group has been protesting since Monday to force the government to take substantial measures on climate change. They want the government to declare a climate and ecological emergency and reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2025. France's President Emmanuel Macron has reaffirmed his pledge to rebuild the Notre Dame Cathedral within the next 5 years. Macron held a meeting with members of the committee tasked with overseeing Notre Dame's repair fundraising drive. The head of the committee, Stéphane Bern, promised to ensure transparency in the handling of funds that will be donated towards the repair. And the bells of churches and cathedrals across France rang to pay tribute to Notre Dame at exactly 6:50 p.m. a local time, the same time as when the fire started. On Tuesday, churches and cathedrals in different countries also rang their bells as a mark of respect and solidarity. More than $1 billion have been raised so far to help repair the 850-year-old cathedral. And with that story, come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.